every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.
All right. Hi, y'all. So if you are watching me on the replay, thank you so much for being here because I truly appreciate you. So my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. And I have a podcast that I created in 2018 called Celeste the Therapist Podcast. And the goal behind it is to just help people kind of shift the way they think. I've been able to do that by talking to people that are doing things to empower the lives of others. So I'm streaming on Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube. Hi, Wes. Hi, Black Irish. Thank you for being here. So before we get started, so you guys know we always have a special guest. And these episodes that I do are going to be uploaded to the podcasting, up to the podcasting platform. So if you follow my podcast, you can hear the episode and just kind of listen to it. I have like 180 something episodes, and all of them are designed around mental health, and that will help you like kind of shift the way you think. So one of the things that I created a free workshop that if you go to my website or my Instagram link, you can find it. And let me just put it up. So this is a free wellness will assessment. And I do a video. I go through all of these sections. So one of the things about us when we're struggling, it can feel like everything is kind of breaking down, and it's hard for us to figure out where to start. So I kind of used this chart and went through each of the areas and talked about the importance of being able to kind of label it and make an assessment, a self-assessment. And so this is something that you can do every day, every week. I think it's important for us to figure out like where we're struggling so we can create a plan and think about like, how is it that we're going to deal with it? A lot of times we just kind of struggle and we don't think about like a plan that we can utilize to help us get past some of the struggles that we're feeling. So this free wellness will assessment, you can find that on my website. If you go to celestetherapist.com, you will find that guide there. All you got to do is sign up and you will start the course right away. Hey, Jamar, thank you so much. And then the last thing I want to do is put up this free text crisis line. I do this every single podcast episode. I think it's important. It's a free text line, 741-741. You can connect with a crisis counselor. So if you find yourself overwhelmed and feeling like you're struggling, it's important to kind of reach out for support. I started this video platform where I come to you Monday through Friday along with a guest, just to kind of talk about the different resources that are out there. There are resources out there, but I know like when you're struggling, it's really hard to pinpoint it. So I'm hoping to really get people to that point. I love the wellness wheel. Thank you, Natasha. It's such a good tool. I don't know if you've used it already, but it's such a good tool to like help us really understand like what we're dealing with. All right, so I'm going to bring on my special guest. I have been following her on LinkedIn for a while, and as soon as COVID happened, there was all of these things that she was doing. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're so amazing. Like, can you come on? I want my people to like hear about what you're doing. She's an amazing person. So I'm going to have her come to the stream and introduce herself to you guys. Hello.
Hi there.
Can you introduce yourself to the people?
Sure. My name is Dahyana Schlosser. I am a child and family therapist, a nurse, soon to be psychiatric nurse practitioner, and co-founder of Pinnacle Partnerships.
She wears a lot of hats. I told you she was super dope.
Yeah. So many hats.
So that's awesome that you are doing all of those things. Now, you said you are a soon to be nurse practitioner.
Yeah.
So what does that feel like to almost get to that place?
Oh my gosh, it feels amazing. So I am about a year out. I'm in a direct entry program. So it was 3 years, 2 years down, one to go. And so, yeah, it's been really amazing and super exciting and also very hard, but very challenging, but almost at the finish line. So it feels good.
And then you work with kids.
Yes.
In
So,
what capacity?
yeah, so I've been a child and family therapist since 2016. And so I have a private practice where I provide in-home therapy to children and families. Obviously now that is shifted to teletherapy. But yeah, so as a therapist, I do a lot of different things, including individual therapy with kiddos, but really providing that wraparound approach. And so working with the parents a ton, working with school systems a ton in order to help bolster the social emotional health of children.
So you've been doing this way before COVID started. Since COVID started, what are some of the things that you've noticed? Because you're working with families, you're working with kids. I had a therapist on yesterday who's a trauma therapist. She's like, I was dealing with past trauma with people. Now I'm in the midst of dealing with current trauma. Like, what does that look like for you?
Oh, yeah. At Pinnacle, we're constantly using the term pandemic trauma. Which is, us recognizing that this is a traumatic experience that really the collective can feel. And so, it's had a lot of repercussions for children and families in lots of different ways. Obviously, the switching from being in school to being home has been a huge transition for lots of kids and families. I think the fact that there have been a lot of kids, even prior to COVID-19, that had lots of mental health challenges. And now with COVID-19 happening, the mental health challenges are really being exacerbated. And we're seeing that a ton in terms of kiddos being really anxious or, even afraid to go outside. And so a lot of the work that we're actually doing at Pinnacle is centered upon helping schools and school systems to help to mitigate some of the effects of this trauma so that kiddos, can feel that support from their collective community to be able to overcome some of the effects of this.
So Dahyana keeps mentioning Pinnacle, but we don't know what Pinnacle is. Let's tell my audience a little bit about what Pinnacle is, because you are a co-founder of it, which is exciting. Congrats on that. Congrats on everything. It's awesome. Tell people about Pinnacle.
Yeah, so Pinnacle, it's myself and my co-founder, Christy Glenn, and yeah, so she's saying Pinnacle for life. I see her on the screen there. Pinnacle it's so many different things, but really it's a consulting agency. We help schools and communities to build resiliency through creating meaningful and collaborative partnerships with mainly families of children who are struggling with mental health issues, but also community partners. We really recognize that the key to overcoming behavioral health challenges is the community around you in a lot of different ways. And so, we work with school systems as well as other organizations, medical providers to help to bolster their mental health infrastructure to help build that resiliency. And so a lot of what we do is consulting with schools and as well as providing what we call immersive workshop experiences that go along with our Pinnacle plan. So we help schools and organizations to build that infrastructure that they need. And we allow that to happen through just really understanding that each school and organization is different. And so we've designed a plan that allows for those nuances and differences to be able to be factored into whatever approach that the school and organization is using to help to bolster their mental health of their community.
That's awesome. I do believe community is a huge part of the growth, especially when it comes to kids.
Yeah.
How have people responded? Because I feel like the way you're describing Pinnacle, you guys are the nucleus
Yes.
of it, and you guys are kind of bridging all of these different like platforms together. Is that kind of what it looks like?
Absolutely. You use the key word that we always use, which is bridging. We're always bridging, home to school and, home to community and all of these other different things, because we recognize that, and COVID is really showing us this, right? That we're only as strong as the collective, right? When we all get together and decide that we're going to focus on a particular issue, it really can make a huge difference. And so for us, it really is about working with schools and communities and making sure that family voice is heard, and that people are making an effort to understand each other, for the greater good of the child, but also the greater good of the community as a whole.
What does that look like for Pinnacle now that you're not like physically in these spaces and like having these like meetings? Like, what have you guys done? Because you've had to pivot your business a little bit, right?
Absolutely. Yep. You nailed it on the head again. Yeah. I think you did.
Maybe it's a therapist thing. Maybe we're on the same page because we're therapists.
I think so. Yeah. I think we recognized very quickly that we were going to have to pivot and shift our business because, the first half of the year, our plan has always been to go out and meet with as many school counselors and administrators as possible to kind of get them on the same page and, get them on the roster in terms of becoming involved with the Pinnacle plan. And so we've had to really pivot that approach to how we're spreading the word about what we're doing. And so the way that we've done it has actually been a blessing, in that COVID, we have a series called Silver Lining, and we're doing these Thursday lunch and learns, which are yes, there it is, which are for educators across the United States, really, to join us in talking about how COVID-19 really does bring about an opportunity for us to think about how we're approaching social and emotional learning as it relates to children and families. And so we have been hosting these lunch and learns for the past 2 weeks. Tomorrow is going to be our third week, and we have seen demand increasing on that. People have been coming, and it's really just a space for us to be able to understand what's happening for educators right now, but then also we're seeing it as a huge opportunity for us to really shift our thinking, right, and how we approach mental health, in the school community as well as in other organizations. And so, yeah, that's one way that we're doing it. We've also created a COVID-19 resources page. So between myself and Christy, we are plugged into so many different resources, but, I think, as there are tons of resources out there, but people don't necessarily know how to access them or, how to get to them. And there are tons of things that have come out that are COVID-19 related to help children and families and just adults in general. And so we've curated a list of over 100 resources that you can find on our page. And so, yeah, we've shifted and we've pivoted, but we've seen that it's really what we're doing is really what people are needing right now in this time.
Yeah. What kind of advice are you giving to parents, and also like what kind of advice are you giving to the teachers? Because it seems like you have your hands in both hats.
Yes.
Which is awesome because, again, you're bridging that gap. So like what kind of advice are you finding yourself kind of repeating, or common themes that you're seeing?
Yeah. So what I didn't mention before was that we've also created an e-workbook for educators. And part of that is us outlining the key themes and areas in which, focusing on these key themes and areas can really help children and families and school communities to build that resiliency in a traumatic time. And within those themes are things like flexibility, right? Being flexible in what you're expecting from children and families during this time, and what you're expecting from yourself. but then also helping to foster that empathy, right? And understanding that we all are going through this right now, and we all are being affected by COVID-19 in many different ways. And so, I think the biggest thing that I know that I've been saying to everyone is just be kind to yourself, go with the flow, be flexible. And, with schools and school systems in particular, talking with administrators, we're really focusing on that collaborative partnership with families. This is prime time for that, right? So whereas before, the regular brick and mortar, the kids are going to school, the parents are going to work, that communication can be lost in the sauce, in the hustle and bustle of every day. But right now is a great time for us to reevaluate how we're even communicating with one another. And it's a great opportunity for schools and educators to make that connection with families and deepen it. As we know that school's not going back this year, but eventually when they go back, this is time to kind of build that infrastructure so that when kids do go back, that we're prepared. And so, we're really also talking a lot about anticipatory guidance, right? So not just planning for what's happening now during COVID, but also what's going to happen post-COVID, and how are we going to respond to children and family needs after that happens.
How are you because I know you're doing these lunch and learns on Thursdays. It's been a couple of weeks you've been doing these.
Yes.
How, because my heart goes out to the teachers, because especially teachers with kids at home, I feel like there's probably a lot more work that they're having to do than, because if you're communicating with, I'm getting, I got text and email. So if you're having to send these out individually, respond, I feel like there's a lot of more work happening. So I can only imagine like the stressors that are happening. And if you have your own kids at home, somebody on the show yesterday wrote that, they're a teacher and they have kids and they're feeling bad because so much of their time, they're kind of concerned about the kiddos that they work with. What kind of things are you hearing on your end?
Yeah, so it's again timely that you asked that question, because last week our Lunch and Learn was really focused on the social and emotional health of educators, because we recognize exactly what you're saying, right? That educators are constantly in a space where there's more demands being placed on them. And now with COVID-19, it's even more so, right? They're supposed to be educators, but then they're, supposed to be taking care of their own mental health and their children's mental health, right? And so saying to educators, here's another thing that we want you to be doing. And so what we're really saying is that educators really need to be focusing on themselves first, right? Like that old adage, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, as cliche as it is, it's so true. Any of us in the helping fields know that we really have to take care of ourselves first in order to be able to take care of those around us. And so we're saying to educators that, again, be gentle with yourself, be flexible, but then also see this as an opportunity to actually make the work that you do easier, right? Because what we're saying is that if you're collaborating with families and children in a way that's meaningful, then, it's going to be easier on you, right? The overall job, right? That bridge to home really is a bridge, rather than having to wade through the waters and, and all the difficulties that can come along with being an educator. So, on the one hand, take care of yourself, but then on the other hand, it's also seize the opportunity to really make those meaningful connections with children and families.
Good. It's like the beauty in the struggle, right? Yes, we're struggling, but trying to find the beauty in what we're able to do. But I'm glad that there's focus on the mental health. I'm glad teachers are thinking that way. Because I have 4 kids in 3 different schools, and all the communication, I'm just I wonder how they're dealing with it and what supports are in place. So that sounds like that people are taking that to consideration, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, again, my heart goes out to all the educators. Every educator I talk to, I'm always like, oh, I couldn't do your job. I totally understand,
Well, they say that about us too. They say
That's true. So,
Speaking of you being a therapist, what kind of things, it sounds like you talked about like earlier, I noticed that you're providing some free therapy to healthcare workers on the front line. Like,
Yeah.
where did that idea come from? I know Liz, you're so dope. You're like a healthcare person and a therapist. Like, you're just the jack of all trades. But where did that idea come to kind of offer this support for the healthcare workers?
Yeah, I am just always looking to help people. And, being a nurse, like it's being a nurse and a therapist puts me in a unique position where I'm able to kind of see into the world of, healthcare in a different way.
Mhm.
And I just know that the work of being in healthcare, especially working in a hospital setting, is so difficult on a regular basis, let alone when a pandemic is happening and people are dying, and lots of people are dying. That is not typical to have happen. When you're working in like an ICU, for example, you may have one or two really dire patients, but for the most part, it's not a whole lot of death and trauma. And so I think that the idea for me came from, I am a therapist, I'm a nurse, but then also, wanting to be on the front lines isn't something that was feasible right now. I have two little kids at home. I have an asthma history. So like, all the calls to action for nurses to go in and provide care to COVID patients, it didn't feel like the right thing for me to do.
Right.
But then I thought to myself, well, I do also have this other skill set that could be applied to be helping these people. And I think healthcare workers that are working for COVID right now should just have free everything for the rest of their life. Like, they should just get a free pass, this is just, and talking with my healthcare colleagues, what they're seeing and what they're experiencing is very, very traumatic. And I think it's the kind of profession where people tend to put themselves last, right? They're putting their patients first and they're attending to what's right in front of them. And so I just wanted to provide a space for people to vent, to cry, to just talk to someone about what they're seeing and what they're experiencing, because it's very significant.
Wow, that's so amazing of you. Thank you for everything that you do. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Is there anything else that you are doing that I didn't mention that would be helpful to my audience to know?
I think we covered it. We're doing the Lunch and Learns every Thursday, which, people can go to our website to sign up if they're interested. We're also looking for families to join the discussion, right? To help to continue to bridge that gap between home and school and education. And so, yeah, I think that if people want to sign up in their family, and they're feeling like they want to join in on the discussion, that's one way to do it. But yeah, I think those are the main things right now. The resource page is up.
So the way I'm just reading Pinnacle Partnership. So if you're joining this now, Dahyana is a co-founder of Pinnacle Partnerships, and this is her other co-founder. The goal is to make the work of teachers and parents lighter by working together. Yeah. We also use family synergy specialists, lived experience professionals at every level. That's so awesome. Everything that you guys are doing, and the fact that even if you had to take a pause, it would have been fine. I want to just preface that, because we are in the middle of a pandemic, but you had enough strength or whatever to be able to pivot it and be able to still provide some services in a different way. So I think that that's amazing, and it's so needed. So I'm so grateful to you.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. We're doing the best we can to help everyone at every level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. If people wanted to reach out to you, how could they find you?
Yeah, so we're easily accessible at pinnaclepartnerships.org. And any healthcare workers, or if you want to refer any healthcare workers for that free teletherapy, they can send an email to therapytoyoullc@gmail.com.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. And I will talk to you later.
Okay. Thanks, Celeste.
Bye.
Bye.
She's dope. I just made it out of getting my therapy degree, and she is on her way to getting her NP. That's so amazing. And not just that, she's like doing amazing things. So again, like if you want to follow Dahyana, she is at Pinnacle Partnerships, and you can email her. And like the really amazing thing, like they've had to pivot their business, but now they have people across the United States have access to what they're doing because now everything's online. So wherever you're listening to this, I know I have a lot of teachers that follow me and parents. This is just one thing that they're doing. And there's other things that they're doing. So if you go to their website, you'll find everything that's happening. And I think one thing that was brought up yesterday during my podcast, I talked about the importance of community and the importance of making sure that we're not doing this alone. I don't think we were supposed to do life alone. I think community is something that is important to have. It's hard to think of community when we keep hearing social distance. So we're pretty much physically distant from people. You know, there's something about like naming things and, you know, we are still able to communicate with people. We're still able to talk to them. We're still able to see them. We can't physically be there. And so being able to shift the way you think around that can really help you shift your mood a little bit and not get in an isolated state to feel like you're all alone. Because there are resources, there are people like Dahyana across the world doing amazing things. And so I really think it's important to make sure that you're tapping into that. Don't forget, tomorrow we'll be back 8 p.m., same time, talking to somebody else. Also, I talked about this at the beginning of the show. I created a free wellness will assessment course where you can go through these different areas. So one of the things I've realized as a therapist is that we struggle, and sometimes we just stay struggling and we do not know where to start to kind of work on the areas we're struggling in. So in this free course, I went through each area and labeled them and talked about how to number them and work on like dealing with the areas that you find yourself struggling. So definitely like check that out. You can find the link to that on my website, or if you follow me on on Instagram, you can find the link there to be able to do that. So you guys know I appreciate y'all. Thank y'all so much for rocking out with me. Don't do this alone. I know there's physical distancing happening, but there's a lot of things happening around the world that you can try to tap into. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. We'll talk to somebody else. Don't forget to follow me everywhere so you guys can stay up to date on what's going on. Love you guys. See you guys tomorrow.
Every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste, the therapist. Let's go.